Hey, I'm Molly Sims.
And I'm Emese Gormley. We're two girls obsessed with one thing, beauty.
And by that, we mean everything that makes you look
And feel
beautiful.
We're calling on our favorite health experts, industry insiders, and friends to answer all your beauty questions.
With a drink in hand.
Definitely with a drink in hand.
You're listening to Lipstick on the Rim with Molly Sims. The best word I can use to describe today's guest is girl boss.
I mean, she is brilliant, she is bold, and she is truly, truly one of the most inspiring women that we both have the privilege of knowing.
She is not just a girl boss. She's an absolute powerhouse and a very, very good friend of mine. Amy Griffin is the woman behind some of the most successful women-led companies we all know and love. Hello Sunshine, Bumble, Goop, just to name a few. Maybe a little Wise Beauty thrown in there. But what's truly incredible about Amy isn't just her success in the boardroom, it's her story. Behind her extraordinary career is a journey of healing, resilience, radical truth-telling that she's finally opening up about in her powerful new memoir, The Tell. You guys, today's conversations is so much more than just business. It's about breaking free from societal expectations, learning to balance ambition with authenticity, embracing vulnerability. So true. As a superpower. Amy, you are a proof that success isn't about having it all together. It's about owning your story, imperfections and all. Amy, we are so honored for you to be here. Guys, she is the girl boss. She's the founder and managing partner of G9 Ventures. Amy Griffin, I love you. I have to say, I have known you now close to maybe 7 years.
I feel like it was like 20. Didn't I know you at my Sports Illustrated days? Like
sort of know you. But like I know, like now you're like
really
you're in my circle. It's just incredible, your story. And we're here to talk about the book. I remember her leaving to write the book. I can't talk to you. I'm writing the book. I'm so overwhelmed now. I'm like, when is the book coming out? But I want to start, and I just want to give you guys a little bit of a theme of what we're going to be talking about. Being a girl boss, it's not easy. Healing through radical truth-telling. What is real truth-telling? Managing perfectionism, because we all want to manage it and we all want to hold on tight. And doing that with societal expectations and the journey to self-discovery. That's what we're going to be talking about. And to start, you guys may not be familiar with Amy's work, but her role in so many of your favorite brands is invaluable.
You're like a real champion of female founders.
You have invested her own money. This isn't other people's money. This is her own money. And
your time and your expertise.
How did you become you, Oklahoma?
Texas and Oklahoma. I'm a border girl. I live on the borders of Texas and Oklahoma. I had this incredible life of growing up in a small panhandle town called Amarillo, in an incredible community. Amarillo, Texas. I'm so grateful for. And I have wonderful parents and siblings, but I grew up in this family where I had a girl boss. I had a girl boss for a grandmother who, at a time in the 50s, I had no idea that wasn't the norm. I thought the norm was that everyone had this grandmother who was always dressed in, hose. It was called hose then. It was not called tights. It was called hose. And you were dressed in hose and you wore heels and you did not chew gum. And you went to the office every day. And I watched my grandmother, who was a single mother of my father, and she went to the office every single day. And she was solving problems. Real world problems, for businesses that she thought needed to exist in the world. So she was the original venture capitalist, back in the 50s when women really weren't going to work. They were supposed to stay at home and take care of the kids. And she didn't have an option. But, I would like to think that if my grandfather had been around, that she still would have been doing what she was doing today, what she did for the family business. But I grew up walking those family stores. I wandered through the aisles of the Lay's potato chips and the Planters peanuts and the Mrs. Baird's bread. I knew brand, and I knew the differences in the colors and the themes and the margins. And I watched, I knew how important it was to take care of the customer. And so I think that there's this mix of my life that comes from Texas hospitality, where my mother taught me to write a beautiful thank you note. And my father was this very ambitious, hardworking businessman who I got to follow around. So I had this mix of the two between my grandmother, then watching my father, and then learning from my mother. I'm really grateful for it. And the theme that we had growing up was, you take care of the customer. You're always taking care of the customer. And if I look to that, and even the brands that I support today, it's always, who are we serving? What is the greater good of this product? Is it going to last for the next, do I want to be involved in 10 years? How are we going to make people happy with it? Am I happy with it?
Yeah.
What was the young Amy like?
Oh, gosh.
Because I know the Amy now.
Well, I'd like to think that there's those parts of me that are still the exact same Amy that I was when I was that little girl that I wrote about, which was this extraordinary urgency I had that's so vivid as the memories of the things that we can talk about that I know happened to me that are not so great. The memories that I have of riding my banana seat bike and taking my friends and saying, I loved the idea that because my family was in this convenience store business, I had this incredible opportunity to be hospitable by taking all the kids in the neighborhood. Come on, guys, we're going for a Coke and a candy bar. And my dad would say, you can have one of each. So you could have a Gatorade and a candy bar, or you could have a pack of gum and a Slurpee. But that was sort of the boundary, and that was the limit. So I would tally it all up, and then I would go all the time. And finally, my dad would say, well, Amy, we have to pay for that. Do you know that you can't just bring everyone in to pay for it? We need to pay for it. So that was my first lesson in thinking like, oh, everything isn't for free in life. But boy, was it fun to give it away.
She's written a new memoir called The Tell, is a powerful exploration of her mental health struggles. We can call it that.
That's very true.
Speed bumps in life, chronic pain,
gifts,
and family disconnection. It came out a few weeks ago, March 11th. You guys have to read this book. It is so, I've known Amy my whole life. I was in tears. I laughed. I cried. I kind of couldn't believe it because I know you in such a different way. But then I'm like, oh, wait a second. I remember when you left that summer. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your story, a little bit of how your healing started, a little bit about the truth to tell?
Well, it's interesting, Molly, if we talk about it on a personal level, how, I remember this idea that I came to you and I said, I have to tell you something. And that really is the basis of the book. There was no...
And that's exactly how she said it. Molly, I have to tell you something.
And can you hold it? Because I think, and I can tell you how the process started, but the learnings that I've gone through in the writing of this, of the connection that you have one-on-one with anyone in your life, when you go to tell them something and you say, can you hold this? We've had the same conversation. Mm-hmm. We had the exact same conversation. I've said to her, there was a gift in my life when she shared with me what was going on in her life because I was going through something at the same time. And it's so much less lonely in the telling. And you use the word which has stood out for me just most authentically, which is vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And we, and I can talk about, I'm going to back up and talk about how I started to write it, but I just want to say that there was this recognition that we as women hold so much, all of us, as mothers and as daughters and in the business world and trying to do the things that we do. But really, in building up these castles around all the things that we have and how people see us, that really is just this shield. And I recognize that this vulnerability was actually the power force, the real connector, both with my children and why I wrote this book. So you asked why I wrote it. I wrote the book not even for my children first. I wrote the book for myself. And it took a very long time to even be able to say, I wrote a book for myself, because we as women have been so conditioned to always say, I'm doing all this for other people. Mm-hmm. I'm making sure everyone is, everything is just so in my life, from my friendships to my work relationships. And so it took a while for me to actually say, no, you know what? I'm writing. I actually didn't know why I was writing. And I wrote for several years before I recognized that I'd written the book before I ever knew that I would share it with another person. So the book saved my life. The book was the way through for me as someone who had been a writer, who had an English major, who processed my life through writing. And I realized that in a moment of real desperation that I needed to start writing. And I started putting everything down on paper. And I think the fact that I started writing, it was the idea, the very basic element of the tell. So once you put it down in writing, I couldn't take it back.
You can't take it back.
And so it was first this reckoning with myself, and then to understand how I felt. And let me say, there were so many times of feeling so lonely. And we can go back if you want to walk through actually how I came to it and what exactly we're talking about. But just the idea that any of us go through something in our life that we think, whatever it is, trauma, I use the word trauma, but that we go through so many situations that I think we tuck in the back of our brain and think, I'm just going to keep going. And in my case, in the book, I talk a lot about it in terms of running through life. I was sprinting and not understanding why I couldn't stop to then say, I need to go really sit with myself and wonder why I can't stop. I can't stop.
You work 30 hours a day. There's only 24 hours in a way. Like,
don't we all?
Yes, but that's how I knew you. And then
I'm better. I'm better. Now that the book is finished, I'm definitely better. But yes, Molly.
Was there a pivotal moment that you were like, hit you that I have to get this out?
So I think it's really important to share that in my journey, there were a number of things that came together at one point in time. I don't know that if one of those had been singled out, that maybe I would have been honest about what had gone on, but I was definitely getting to it. Again, I talk about the tell being forward facing, meaning tell another person. But honestly, there were so many tells throughout my life that even the tells where I was trying to be honest with myself, as an instance, as an example, I remember being with dear friends on a trip, and a girlfriend talked about a story that had happened to her as a little girl. And I had to excuse myself and step back from the table. And I remember sitting in the bathroom thinking, why? What? Pull yourself together. Which was, again, put on that face and go be the good girl that you're supposed to be, and go out and just deal. But those little cracks were the ideas, the tells within themselves.
Do you think because you have 4 children, first children, did you have those moments I'm sure they started to creep on after every baby, right? Like they break through the little cracks. You're like, oh God.
Well, our kids are our teachers, right?
Yeah.
For all of us. And I think that the kids did that for me in terms of the cracks that started showing. At the same time, the more children I had, the faster I had to run. The more I was working, I was adding another hour, for all the things I was trying to do. It was, the children was this badge of honor that I was taking care of them all the time while trying to do other things on the side for others. But that was the real reckoning when one of my children, and I write about this, came to me and said, which is so painful. And in fact, as I wrote it, I wrote in the book and I said, my daughter said to me, Mom, it's hard for me to say, you're an amazing mom, or that's not what she said. She said, I know you, but I don't really know you. Where are you? And I then said, but I'm an amazing mom, I think in that moment. I do everything for you.
How old was she?
She was 10, from the mouth of babes, right?
Yeah.
And that really caused me to stop in my tracks and to recognize that I needed to, what do you
think she meant by it in that moment? The connection?
The connection and this idea of perfection, of how we place this idea of perfection on our children, that we expect our children to be this, that, and the other, to have this, that grades. And whatever it was that she was feeling at the time, I think that we can't help but see our children as a reflection. They see us. They want to impress us. They want to do well for us. I'm so proud to say that I have such a different relationship with my children, in the idea that now, having gone through what I've gone through, and I want to get back to the pivotal moment because I think it's really important. But having gone through what I've gone through, my daughters were actually like fighting last night at the table. And John remarked, I was just sitting there watching it, kind of like, oh, they'll work it out. It's fine. And not getting overly involved, not stressing about their grades, because you know what? That's not going to help the relationship with them. That's not going to help my relationship with them. It's only going to put more pressure on them. Mm-hmm. My children go to school in New York City. They already have enough pressure on them. They already know the pressure is there. But I think it's important to go back to the pivotal moment just to say that I haven't used the word brave because that's an outsider's perspective. But I have used the word vulnerable. And, sometimes I wake up like I did this morning or yesterday morning. Why am I doing this? Go back to the life of just supporting all these founders, and you can support them and be so happy to do that. Just go back into that life. No. I've done this. I'm stepping forward. I know why I'm here. And that moment really came when I recognized that I had been following psychedelic assisted therapy trials and how veterans were using it for PTSD. And there really was this moment around a link between me not knowing that PTSD could also mean victims of sexual abuse or any other kind of trauma. I thought of it purely as war related. I think my brain was so disconnected from any type of wanting to understand what PTSD was. But then after seeing both my husband and then a very dear friend at a table, and I sat with her and said, what are you doing? Because everything in your life is better, your relationships. And what have you, how have you done this? And she said, I've worked with a therapist with psychedelic assisted therapy and at MDMA. And so there was a moment in talking to my husband, and I said, I know it's time for me to go and do this. And so I think there was a switch that was flipped. And when I went in that pivotal moment, and I said, as someone, Molly, I'm so boring. For my friends, we typed there, right? Amy's going to have a margarita tonight, which is like a 6-month occurrence. It happens like once every 6 months. Salty and spicy.
That's like mine.
Salty and spicy.
You have it a bit more.
I have it.
Or sweet and spicy.
I have
Sweet,
it much
salty,
more,
and spicy. But so for me to go and agree and allow myself to not be in control was a pivotal moment in my life.
Probably one of the most scariest moments because you like to be in control. I like to be. Everybody likes to be in control.
For sure. And also keep in mind, my daughters were at the same ages that I was. And I can say I had deep childhood sexual trauma. And on top of all those things, my daughters being of the ages, probably my age in life that my children weren't falling in a swimming pool. I wasn't on man where I had to grab. I wasn't having to pay that kind of attention. Your brain had a little bit more functioning power. And I was settling in at work. But the greatest gift to me is my spouse, because I'd been in a 20-year marriage with someone who made me feel radically safe all the time, has always. So there was never that moment of doubt. So I think it was just time to say, I surrender. I surrender and give myself permission. And Molly, to your point, you just said, did I know? I knew. And yet I would not give myself permission. I didn't want to give myself permission. But in writing it, and in me, I am not an expert. I am not a scientist. I am not a doctor. I'm not a teacher. I only am an expert in myself now. Where I probably wouldn't have been able to say that 5 years ago, but I am an expert in myself. So I can laugh at myself when I run out of an elevator because it's crowded. So if anyone's ever with me and I stick my purse in the elevator, as I wrote about, I can laugh about that because I know myself. And so
you know your triggers.
I know my triggers. And I also want to say that in the writing, the book is not a story of my trauma, while I do talk about what happened to me. And it's very difficult. The story is this idea of taking what was a tragedy in my life and turning it into the greatest tapestry of relationships with everyone in my life. And I only could do that after I had gone and been honest with myself, frankly, when I'd finished writing this book that I thought no one in the world was ever going to see because I kept it in a safe.
So talk to us about the psychedelic therapy. What does that look like for those that aren't familiar with it?
I know, it's also changed so much in the years since I explored it. And for me, it was something I could have never imagined that I would be the person that said I explored a new kind of therapy. I think I knew maybe I needed it. That was deep down the only way I was ever going to really release control and give myself this compassion. But I can only tell you, and I'm going to tell you how I felt about it, in that what my experience was. Because when I took the pill and I put the eye shades on, I felt so secure with the practitioner who was with me that day and this woman who I call the divine feminine, because there was this safety in relationship, right? And for me, it was within 5 minutes, I just said, here I go. I'm going to tell you everything. And why is this man here? Why is my teacher back in the room? And that was the telling for me. And to say that out loud, even I can say it now. I couldn't say it for years. It was so hard to say, why is that man here? The teacher is here. But the experience that I could give you, the analogy I can give you for MDMA and my experience in a session for me last 5 to 8 hours, is that you walk down your street every day. And you walk down the street. I usually walk down the same side of the street just by habit, right? Mm-hmm. And so you walk down the same side of the street and then you open your door and you go in your house and you're used to seeing things a certain way. And then imagine that one day you decide to cross the street to the other side and you walk down your block, but you're looking at your house from a completely different perspective. You see the trees differently. You might see a different shop on the side. You see just a whole different framework. And for me, the MDMA experience was really that permission that I gave myself to see the full picture of my life. And so I'm so grateful for that experience, but I've also worked very, very hard to recognize that it was only a very small piece. Mm-hmm. Because, the acceptance of deciding I was going to have the experience of psychedelic assisted therapy was one thing, but then all the other factors were so important. And I think the most important thing I can say to anyone who's listening is the idea that as someone who had and has the resources to then, explore, I tried everything after because my life was completely turned upside down.
You opened it up. You opened up Pandora's box.
I opened up Pandora's box and I had no idea where to go. So I was literally lucky if there were days when I could get dressed and get up off the floor. It was that touch and go for a long time. It's not fun to remember those days, but at the same time, I try to give myself grace and compassion for how far I'd come to even acknowledge it.
Let me tell you something. You, and I've known you for a very long time, you can make everything about everybody else but you. You are incredible at that. You are incredible. And now you've,
taken the moment for yourself.
You've taken it and made it about you. I cannot tell you the tell is going to help so many people because being able to tell your truth, the truth telling, to being able to, it happened to me. And I came through it. And the connection back with your family. That alone is everything. The most important is the connection with yourself.
It's funny. Someone once asked me when I was training, I guess there are lots of, parts therapy, which I think is a thing I love to talk about. There's so many parts of me. And someone once asked me when I was training for a race, which by the way, I wasn't trying to win the race. I was just trying to finish it. But they said, what if you don't finish the race? And I looked at the person and I said, that's not an option. That's just not an option. And I remember that conversation. And it was that same conversation that I then had with myself around this, which was literally starting over again. In many ways, the way I would think about the way many of the founders that I've worked with have called me and said, I'm pivoting. Great, let's pivot. You know what? As long as you come to me and you have humility about what you're doing, we can handle all of it. And I think it was only in turning around and having a complete about face about my life to say, when anyone's ever said your life is perfect, to turn and look over your shoulder and say, who are they talking to? What does perfection even mean? And what is this thing? If one was to say I was striving perfection, which I write about and saying, I hate the word, I don't know what it stands for, but I was probably going for it.
You were going for it because you didn't know anything else.
No, and now, the gratitude I have for my life, for the messiness of it, for the glass of wine that spills on the table in the middle of an important dinner on a white tablecloth that everyone gasps. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the spilled wine. It's the conversations that we are going to have, that I have with my children, that are messy.
Someone has a tell. How do they start?
That's just a question I get a lot, and it's so hard and it's so easy. It's first to tell yourself, whether you scribble it on a piece of paper or you write it in your notes document and you save it, maybe you erase it, and then you save it again. And then you think about your life and you think about what constitutes a life. And for me, what constitutes a life is not the things I have or the things that people perceive me to have because of my business or how I live my life, but instead the relationships that I have and the relationships that I've cultivated and I've built. And I hope that people find that one person in their life where they realize that all we have are our memories and our relationships.
Mm-hmm. And you've beautifully cultivated both of those.
I mean, what else? I don't know what happens when we leave this earth, but I hope we get to keep the memories. And I know we get to keep the relationships.
I think, listen, we hide so much. We hide so much from ourselves. We hide, we hide. We're that's what we do. But it's protection.
Yeah, we ignore a lot, I think. I know I bury a lot. I know you. I mean, I think we both do.
I think we all do.
It's like our survival mechanism.
You try to compartmentalize. You try to put it down. How did it affect? Because I remember you telling me you were actually having physical symptoms. How? Because again, you can put it down and put it away and lock it in a drawer. Then the drawer starts, creaking and trying to open. And I remember you saying, I'm physically becoming ill.
I mean, I think that was also definitely a tell in all of the years, in the physical symptoms that I was having. I mean, so many things were happening in my body around. I've had so many hip surgeries and back surgeries, and a lot of it was brought on through athletics, but it was me. I talk about how, and I write about how I had trained for this crazy race for a year, which I look back on it now, I couldn't even run a mile. But I trained for this race and I was getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the pool and then taking the kids to school and then coming back and running before I actually even started the day to go to work. And I finished that race. And I write about this because this was a real tell for me. I finished the race and then I said to myself, wait, that didn't do it. That physical, I tried to beat it out of myself. I tried to run away from it as far and fast as I could. And it didn't go away. And that was another moment where I thought, I guess it would, flickers of things would come in and I would say, nope, I'm not going to go there. I don't need to go there. I built up enough moats that I don't need of a castle. I don't need to. I can let the moats down, or I can let the drawbridge down around the moat whenever I want, and I can bring it back up. And that's where I think that, we all have these triggers around perfectionism and control that when we let go of them, life is just so much more beautiful and you're so much more connected. And, both of you have had years, the years.
We've had a few years.
Yeah.
You've had years, but let me ask you, how many times have you picked up the phone to call each other on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m? And now looking back on those conversations, how grateful are you, even though they were the worst conversations you probably ever had to have in your life? Aren't they beautiful now? Aren't they joyful to think about those?
I think we just look to each other and go, are we going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? Is it okay? It's like Molly's my phone call for reassurance. Like when I'm panicking about something, right? Like I don't have my mom anymore. I don't have any siblings. Like that, and God love my husband, but he's not positive poly. So I'm like, that's who I call.
I have that. Isn't it fun to talk about that? I have my best friend who calls me every single morning. I didn't really even drink coffee till now. I drink it just so I can tell her, and we drink it on FaceTime. And then my husband wrote me this note a few months ago. And he always says to me, you are safe and you are loved. You are safe and you are loved. So he wrote me this note, and then I actually spilled coffee on it one day on my bedside table. It's shriveled and shrunken and gross. And I'm always like, where's that note? Where's that note? Because you are safe and you are loved.
Did he know early on?
He says that there were so many tells that we've talked about. I write about many of them in the book. There were just honest moments in our life and relationship. But I think that's the beauty that now, in our relationship, the gratitude I have for him when I say to him, you never pushed me for an answer. You always met me where I was. He never, he never pushed. He just always met me where I was. And that was.
And that is so, John is an incredible, he's just an incredible human. He's an incredible investor. He's an incredible friend. But that is so, wonderful for you that God gave you him.
I think that's, my mom always says, remember who's in charge. And we know who's in charge and he's dictating all of this. And she's right. Yeah. And John is my greatest gift in life to have created this family. And I do think it's not it's not by chance. I think that it was mandated. I think that all of this process of me coming forward to tell this story and everything that happened to me is happening for me, not to me. And because now I'm able to share it. And I Molly, as you said, taking care of people. I wish I could be the repository for everyone. I wish I could take every one of these stories and say, like, you're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay.
But then I also get worried that I can't even do that. So I now realize, like, that I've done it in the book. I've done it in the tell. So when you read it, you can then tell someone else. You can look them in the eye and say, you go tell now.
I think that's why you have been, such an incredible, your G9 Ventures. It's funny. I didn't bring it because I've lived in, 3 or 4 different places in the last, 2 or 3 months. But there was a hat sitting in Palm Desert. And my son had been wearing it. It was the one thing he took when he evacuated. And it was called Making Waves. Do you know the hat that you gave at the G9 Ventures?
Do I know the hat? Like the stitching on the hat?
That's my logo.
The branding, the stitching, the fact that it's the most comfortable trucker hat that I wear all the time.
It's the most comfortable
trucker hat. Keeps the sun out in the best way.
It's mine and he steals it.
I'll get you another one.
But I do think that is what you've done. You've made waves. You're going to make waves with this book and it's going to help so many people. I think we have so many things that we're hiding, we're covering, we're placating, we're trying to be perfect, we're trying to hold it all together. And I do think, you are making waves with this book and it is powerful. And I think what I'm so honored to be your friend and to be, in your world is that you could have not done it. You could have just kept it within your little circle, within your community, but you decided to tell the entire world. And that, my friend, is making waves.
That's the
Truly.
Nicest compliment, Molly. That's the highest compliment. I didn't realize that in making waves and trying to help the businesses I've invested in that I was creating a branding slogan for myself, but maybe it does go all the way back to walking through those doors with my grandmother.
It does.
And I know that my grandmothers would both be really proud of me. And I think that anyone's in their lineage and their family, when they just, even if you can't tell yourself, I've never really thought about it, but maybe you just look up and tell your grandparents. And I think they know.
Yeah.
I think they know. But I thank you. That's the kindest compliment. Thank you so much. First of all, I'm glad you like the hat.
I literally was thinking about it. I knew, I was going to get to sit down with you and talk about it. But that hat was sitting there and I was like, so that's her life. That's her story. We all have our story, right? It's what we do with it. Mm-hmm. But I love that hat. I think you're, any founder, soon to be founder, yet to be founder, you are incredible at helping founders, business people, Reese, everyone, Gwyneth, you have been pivotal. And maybe it all comes from your grandmother. Those little seeds of how do I make the customer happy?
That's so nice. I also realize I sometimes say I know nothing about nothing, but isn't that the humility that we all show up with in our lives, both as a parent and in business? I think the lessons that I've learned in parenthood have so translated to what I do in the workplace. And, I only really started doing what I was doing 10, 12 years ago. And it was this idea that, I meet so many women that had these incredible business ideas. I tried to say to most of them, they're not venture ideas, not because your idea is not incredible, but because just go believe in yourself and reinvest in that business till it's big enough, till you do want to have someone else telling you how to grow. And it's a very...
and now you're not doing it just in beauty. I mean, sports. I mean, you're stamping your path and just the way you support these founders and these women. I mean, it's invaluable.
Well, you're as someone who, I met you through Molly, but then professionally we connected, and it's interesting. Every founder, every female founder, like you are like the name everybody whispers that they want to surround themselves with.
Can you get me into the summit?
I mean,
no, I cannot.
But it is. And I think it's a testament to, I truly believe that everything in our life shapes us. I do. I think there's no coincidences. Even the really bad things, ultimately, like we talked to this trauma expert and she was like, well, I know I'm a positive poly. That is I bright side things. I get it. But I think that everything that you went through, there's probably a deep part of you that was trying to fix yourself by helping fix other people and help people.
Amen.
100%.
And that's the simplest way of breaking it all down. And I think
that's it. That's right.
And think of how many lives you have touched and helped and supported and changed lives. I mean, there are women
You're a
whose
dream
businesses,
changer. Like, and I mean that.
Yeah,
you can do it.
It's genuine. It's not blowing smoke up your ass. It's a fact. Like, I think that when you decide to believe in somebody, you throw your weight in it. And I've seen it. And you have the power with that and through that to change someone's life, like entirely, with supporting their business.
Well, it's the greatest honor for me to see another woman tell her story, whether it's in a brand or their business they're building or in sports, which is something that I care deeply about. That's part of me that I'm not throwing out with the bathwater. As I parsed out all these things that I don't want to have anymore, there is still this part of me in being told by this person in my life, in the school, that I was a leader, which was not real in the way that this person brought me in to hurt me. But I've recognized I am a leader.
You are a leader.
I am a leader. And I have ambition, and I have ambition for other women to succeed. And so the change right now, and then stepping out to have these conversations, is the idea that I'm turning the table to now say, you know what? I'm actually going to help people more by talking about me, which is a little scary.
I know, because you've helped everyone else.
But the greatest gift I can give is my story.
100%.
Is my story.
100%.
Yeah. That's so kind. Thank you.
I have to do this because it is Lipstick on the Rim, and she is my friend, and we are obsessed with her beauty and her.
I mean, she's beautiful.
She's beautiful. If you don't know Amy, look her up. I'm going to give you her Instagram. 3 things we didn't know about you.
Oh boy. 3 things you didn't. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you one really big one. I love a flea market.
You do?
Oh my gosh. I get half of the clothes I buy at the flea market in Paris, but I do love...
In Paris.
Let's add that in there.
Do you go to Klingencore?
I go to the flea markets and I don't even know what the words are, but I roam and I can find a deal. I've always loved the flea market. I love the flea market in New York City. When I was, in my 20s, I could find a vase and make it a lamp. I could find a table and I could shellac it. I could do, you name it. And that's because it's going back to my family. And I think about my mother and my grandmother drug me around looking for these Majolica or whatever you say, plates, which I was doing my Audible and reading it. And they're like, no, it's Majolica. I'm like, we could say Majolica down the South. It's Majolica plates. They're green.
My mom did the same thing. We would go to Hazel, which is not even a town, it's a stoplight. But yes, I didn't know that.
And then one of the other things you don't know about me that I love so much, this is going to make everybody really jealous. My husband brings me coffee every single morning.
So does mine.
It's like
mine doesn't.
Favorite minute and a half. Scott, let's get on it.
Scott, you're the only one that's been
He doesn't. He tries.
Signature.
He doesn't know how much of the...
I bring you more coffee than Steve does.
No, you know what? I actually don't. So this is truth. This is the other thing you don't. This is the third piece. He just brings me a shot of coffee because he doesn't know how to really make it that way, but it's the thought.
He does.
So I have that with him. So it's the connection with him, back to everything being about connections in life. It's that first touch point that I get to have it with him in the morning.
Best piece of advice you received?
You never know what's going on in someone else's life.
So true.
Always give them
Grace.
the benefit of the doubt and grace. And you just never know.
If you could live anywhere, where would it be?
Oh, goodness. Well, part of the time in Paris, part of the time in New Zealand, part of the time in New York, maybe back down in Austin with all my best friends from high school who all migrated there. But I'm really happy in New York City with my kids and my family. And I'm really grateful in where I am right now in this moment in time.
What's the one thing that's always in your bag?
Your lip gloss?
Like a gloss, my sweetie. Okay.
You know what it is right now? Because everyone in New York City is sick, is hand sanitizer.
I know. Yeah,
I mean,
I've been taking oil and oregano twice a day.
A fashion trend you wish would go out of fashion.
I'm thinking of my girls right now. What are fashion trends? What trends trendy right now?
Pajama pants.
Yeah, the pajama pants and oversized
The
sweatpants.
oversized sweats, like
baby t-shirts and
looking like
oversized
they just
sweatshirts.
rolled out of bed. And
Yeah, I thought that was just how I lived and looked at the dress. It's the contrast principle. Okay, next question.
what's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, I hate triangulation. I hate the idea. I loathe when someone tells you something you can't do any information with and it doesn't serve anyone. I'm like, just keep it to yourself. If it isn't kind and it doesn't make someone feel good about themselves, just leave it.
Have you had to cut relationships?
I don't really have that in my life. I have a couple people who I've stepped away with grace in my entire life, but not even enough to fill a hand. And there's still people that I love dearly, but I see that they're going through something. And it wasn't mine to take on.
Right. We always ask everybody before they go, if you could give advice to your 10-year-old self, what would it be?
I would definitely tell my 10-year-old self that she is loved. She is loved, she's safe, and she is loved. And she probably needed to hear it then, and I'm glad to say it now. And I have so much compassion and grace, and I'm so glad that she gave herself permission to tell.
And she's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
We love you.
I mean, here we go. The Tell. It's out. You guys go grab it. It's a page turner. It is incredible. It's really powerful. I have to tell you, I'm so proud of you as a friend. I'm proud of you as, a businesswoman, just what you've done and everything. Amy Griffin at Amy Griffin, AMYGRIFFIN. She's the managing founding partner of G9 Ventures, making waves. Love you.
Love you guys.
I'm so
Thank
proud
you
of
so
you.
much for
This
having me. I'm
book
really
is
grateful
so
to
excited
you.
for you to share this and
The Tell, guys.
how many people are going to help.
The Tell.
Here goes. I'm diving in.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
No turning back.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Lipstick on the Rim with Molly Sims and my ride or die, Emese Gormley. We are so excited to bring you guys along on this journey with us. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Lipstick on the Rim and at Molly B. Sims. Or you can go to my blog where you can dive just a little bit deeper into my favorite products, trends, and more at mollysims.substack.com. And don't forget to check out our video episodes on my YouTube channel, Molly Sims. This podcast is a production with Sony Music. I wanted to give a special thanks to my team, Rosie Cummings, Kenna Ryan, Sophie Kevorkian, and everyone at Sony Music. Don't forget to listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss out on the fun.